reasons that Samsung played it safe with the Z Fold 5. So, as you well probably know, the Z Fold 4 and the Z Fold 5 that's out now, pretty similar, substantially. Not a whole lot of change. The front screen, the same. The memory, the same. The storage space, basically the same. I mean, there's not a whole lot that has changed, and that's kind of frustrating when you look at it from, well, the whole idea with foldables is they're supposed to be like the cutting edge of technology, the latest, the greatest, the best that's out there. They cost so much money, $1,799. And I think maybe over the last couple of years, because Samsung's basically just retooled the exact same phone for 4 years now, we kind of keep thinking, all right, the next one's going to be it. The next one's going to be it. And we've gone through this with other phones before. Most importantly, the iPhone. For the longest time, it was like, okay, we get the new phone, the next year we get the S series, and the next year they change it up again. And for the longest time when it came to technology, there was lots of new stuff that would come out. So it felt like every year, every 2 years, we would kind of get a redesign, something fresh, something exciting, a new feature here and there. And there's just really not any of that whenever it comes to the Z Fold 5. Really the biggest, probably most substantial upgrade is the chip, which some people may or may not even notice. It's something me as a tech enthusiast notices and I pay attention to. I understand and realize the benefits of it because we get better battery life, we get lower heat production, and we get better heat management under load. And it also gives us better things like, well, it's got the better machine learning and AI. You've got the nitography for better low light photography photos, less noise, better skin tones. So, I mean, there's stuff here and there, but it's not like back in the day when it's like, oh, we got fingerprint sensors. Remember when we finally got fingerprint sensors on the phones? Or when we got the iris recognition scanners with Samsung phones? Or when we got Touch ID, when we got Face ID, when we got the hand ID scanning where it would scan the blood vessels in your hands with LG? There's just not a whole lot really exciting. So the folding phones were largely the exciting part that came back to the phone industry. And it's like, all right, 4 years, same phone. Let's go, Samsung. So here's the 3 reasons I kind of think that we're in this boat that we're in now. One of them, of course, is playing it safe. So in the United States, pretty much undisputed over the last 5 years, Samsung has been the only one making foldable phones here, essentially. So that means if they screw up, if something doesn't work right, if they don't deliver, if we have too many failures, if something doesn't work right, then it's going to harm the entire business division that they have here because people will lose confidence. And Samsung has been trying to build confidence in Samsung foldable phones for the last 5 years. In addition to that, not just their foldable phones, but Samsung, they make these displays for other phones. Case in point, this guy right here, the Google Pixel Fold. Samsung makes the screen for this. So you have to have faith in the technology. It's already something that's fundamentally different. There's moving parts. We got different layers of ultra-thin glass and plastic, whatever you want to call it, that bends and flexes and curves and creases. And if you mess that up, then 1, people are not going to want to buy it. And 2, well, it's going to damage your entire business. So if you remember all the way back to the first Fold, it kind of started off with with a rocky road. And they had to go back to the lab and fix a few things before it was ready a couple months later. But since then, largely, I think they've done all right, but that's one big reason. They can't substantially change too much stuff. They can't be too aggressive because if they do, then 1, people will lose confidence, 2, they'll lose money, and then 3, it'll hurt the business. So that's one big reason. 2 is there just hasn't been any competition. And if you look at things in the market, when you look at Apple and like the IBM PCs back in the day, when you look at different phone companies, when you look at rival different restaurants or different chains like McDonald's and Burger King, for instance, they keep each other competitive. They help keep the prices fair. They keep prices lower. They drive innovation. They have to stand out here and there and kind of change things up every once in a while. And there just hasn't been that. So when there's no competition, then they get lazy and they just go, well, we'll just put the new phone out next year because nobody else is going to make one. So by default, people will buy ours. So that's another big reason. There just hasn't been any competition. And that's why I think if you take a look at what we got with the Z Flip 5, they kind of changed things up a little bit and made it more competitive. And it's more in line with what we just got with the Motorola Razr Plus that just came out a few weeks ago. And that's something I anticipated. But we also know that, well, there's just not a whole lot in the fold and flip phone market in the United States. So I think Samsung still considers themselves kind of untouchable in that department. And maybe so because they have a tremendously much larger market share in the US than, like, let's say Google and Motorola. So that's another reason. And then another reason is Well, phones are becoming largely commodities. Now, for the longest time, the really expensive stuff, it was harder to get. And now with financing, it makes it easier to get. You can do your 24-month financing, your 36-month financing. They've even had 48-month financing in the past with these really expensive phones. And, well, they're just kind of they're there now. It's one thing where like not so many people buy these as other phones, but if you take a look at all the flashy, fancy, expensive phones, iPhones are an expensive phone. They're all over the place now, just like cars. And that's the best thing I can equate it to. I was having a conversation with Jason Lewis, Painfully Honest Tech, the other day, and we were having to talk about it because it just feels like they're just part of culture and society now. It's not something like, oh, I've got a flip phone, everybody else has got smartphones, or oh, I've got this phone, everybody else is carrying around that. Like there's been a lot of changes over the years, but we've kind of reached peak smartphone. That's why people are trying to find different things. That's why companies are making things like foldable phones and flippable phones and the trifold phone that we've had rumored for a while now. They're trying to push the envelope and find something new that sticks that they can build some market share on because quite frankly, it's just like going out every year and every couple of years and getting a new car. You don't see a lot of substantial change. When you look at a car from a 2020 model, you look at a 2023 model, unless there was a redesign in there somewhere, typically when it comes to a new body style, they stick around for a while. I mean, back in the day, you take a look at Mustangs, for instance. You had like the 94 to 95 run of the Mustang, which that was kind of short-lived. Well, that was the 5.0, but it went from 94 to 99. Before that, the Fox body was substantially the same from 79 to 93. And then you take a look at later on, we had the 99 to 2003 models. It kind of changes every couple of years. It's not something where every year you get a redesign, because when you have redesigns like that, it costs a lot more money. They raise the prices. They have to go back to the drawing board. They have to retest things. They have to redesign stuff. So that's kind of where we're at with phones now. The phones, Samsung has pretty much decided this is what they want their fold to be. Now, maybe they'll make a different phone that at some point they will introduce that will have a substantially similar or different format. But for right now, I think it's safe to say that Samsung believes this is their ideal version of a full-size foldable phone, and we're just getting iterative updates. These phones are not designed for year-over-year upgrades. They just aren't. So as much as I'm a tech enthusiast, as much as I get one every year, and as much as I make videos about them, that's the exception. That's not the rule. That's not the general rule. That's not even the remote rule. There's not a lot of people that go out every year and buy a new $1,799 version of the same phone. They just don't. And with good reason. And there's not a whole lot of stuff that changes anymore. Same thing with like computers. Things were so exciting for a long time. I remember when we finally got the first gigahertz processor. It was so cool. Then it was like, oh, we got a 1.5. We got a 1.7. Oh, we got a 2 gigahertz processor. And then next thing you know, it's 3 gigahertz. It's like, you can only push silicon so far, right? Unless you do things substantially to lower the heat and the electricity. There's just a lot of stuff that goes on there. So same thing with phones. We kind of push the envelope. 3.36 gigahertz, the latest Samsung Galaxy S23. That is a tremendous amount of power in a phone. Is there really that much of a difference between like a 2.8 gigahertz, a 3.3, a 3.5 gigahertz? No. They're still running Twitter, or the app formerly known as Twitter, the same way. Boom Beach has run the same substantially on my phone for the last 10 years. There's not a whole lot that's really changed there. So until we find that next thing, that next exciting thing, the next new true form factor, the next whatever it's going to be, we're kind of, I think, at a stalemate here, and there's not going to be a whole lot of these big changes, especially not ones that you need to go out and buy this year over year. I mean, the part of me that likes the excitement and the cool part about technology and phones would love that. But from a consumer perspective, from a marketability perspective, it doesn't make sense, because if Samsung were relying on people to go out and buy new almost $2,000 phones every year, their model for business would fail. But it is exciting if you have a Z Fold 2 and you go to a Z Fold 5. It's pretty exciting if you go from the original Fold to a Fold 4 or a Fold 5. And that's the thing, these phones are supported for so long now. 4 years of operating system updates, 5 years of security patches with these phones. So they're designed to be supported for 5 years, not to get a new one every year. Now, as cool as that might be, as some people might enjoy that, YOLO, do whatever you want with your money. But if you're trying to understand this from why is there not a lot of change, it's not necessarily, I think, Samsung being lazy, which you could construe it that way, because it's like, why aren't you giving me more cool things? But we're just really not getting a whole lot of cool things in pretty much any phone at this point, year over year. and that's why, for the reasons I've talked about in this video. So I think that maybe next year, maybe the following year, we might see something more exciting, but that's why when we go, oh, there's just not that much change from the Fold 4 to the Fold 5, yes, it is disappointing as a tech enthusiast, but from a consumer and a marketing perspective, the people who are upset about it aren't really the target audience. The target audience is kind of like a 2 or 3 or maybe even a 4-year evolution on when it's time to upgrade to get a new phone. About the time your 2 or 3 year payment plan on your phone runs out that you got financed through your carrier, and then you go trade it in, you get some decent trade-in value, you go get a new phone. And then you're like, wow, this is so much better than the one 3 years ago. If you get a new phone every 2 or 3 years, you'll be a lot more excited, a lot more surprised, and find a lot more newer, compelling things as opposed to year over year. So that right there, I just wanted to talk about this in the video because there is a lot of conjecture, a lot of talking about it. Is Samsung lazy? Are they ripping us off? Are they just giving us bland year-over-year upgrades? You have to look at it from the proper perspective, I think. So if you look at it from the tech enthusiast perspective, not so exciting. Not a whole lot of change here. Brighter screen, new chip, all that stuff. Not really the most romantic thing in technology. But if you think about it like you do something else that you get every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then yeah, there's some cool stuff there that you can really appreciate and enjoy, and take that and you'll have that phone for a couple more years. So that's all I got in this video. Gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. I know there's a lot of talking and explaining and things going on here, but I've been thinking about it a lot the last few days, having some discussion. I said, you know what? I need to talk about this. And now I have, so I'm going to shut up. So that's all I've got. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was educational, thought-provoking, insightful, and you enjoyed it. And if you did, please, of course, hit the like and the subscribe button, little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out, all that stuff. Of course, go to the comment section if you want to talk about it, and we can meet there and have some discussion, hopefully. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching. Have a wonderful weekend. Hope you have a great time. Thanks for all you do. I appreciate you showing up, watching this video, supporting the channel. It means the world to me. It enables me to do what I can do. And hopefully you enjoy the product of that. So again, have a great weekend. See you guys later. And I'll see you guys next time.